lips, they may not speak, for some things cannot be spoken, but time will not forget about the price you had to pay for the greed of men who did not respect the woman, the Congolese woman, oh the woman. They hurt your body and your mind, and they take away your land. They take your jobs, put guns in your enemies' hands. Before the whole, the killings and the rape of the woman, the Congolese woman. Let go and pull yourself up with your own strong hand, strong and ever reaching for the sky. That is a woman. And your body may be broken, your lips, for some things, but time will not forget about the price you had to pay. A man, not respect the woman.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to HMG Network, broadcasting live from the greater Washington, D.C. metropolitan. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and this is another round of discussion talking about the Rwandan genocide, untold stories. I must apologize to you all who are following our broadcast, as we had just gotten hacked.
I cannot hear.
So the link, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, that link has been hacked. There's a new link that was created. So we just want to say we are so sorry. The attacks, the social attacks, the hacking, these are the things that takes place all the time. It does take place. And we just want to say we are very, very sorry, guys, for those of you who could not follow the conversation as we were going to do. So with this in mind, I want to ask Claude Gatebuke. I don't know if you can hear me right now. Claude, are you still there?
Yes, thank you, Freeman, and apologize again to the audience for we had a hack attack, and if I can ask for just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, in the studio, could we play the song Congolese Women for a couple of minutes, maybe? That way we can give the audience the time to migrate from the old hacked link over to this broadcast. I don't know if you can hear me in the studio.
Yes, absolutely, Claude.
Yes.
We can do that.
Your spirit may fly away, and your body may lips they may not speak, for some things cannot be spoken, but time will not forget about the price you had to pay for freedom. Men who did not respect the woman, the Congolese woman, oh the woman. They hurt your body and your mind, and they take away your land. They take away your jobs, put guns in your enemies' hands. How many more must die before the whole world pays for the telling of the lies, the killings and the rape of the woman, the Congolese woman? You dry your eyes and you keep it going. Pull yourself up with your own strong hand, strong and ever reaching for the sky. That is a woman. Your spirit may fly away, and your body may be broken. Your lips, they may not speak, for some things cannot be spoken. But time will not forget about the price you had to pay for the greed of men who did not respect the woman, oh, the Congolese woman, the woman, oh, the woman.
Apologize again one more time for the hack attack. But guess what? We're back. We're not gonna be silenced. So we're gonna continue with with our testimonies. But we were just listening to Delphine's testimony, and let's switch over real quick to JP. We were talking about how the three of us fled Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide in 1994, and we fled to the Congo, and we lived through some really horrific times. I shared a little bit of my story. We'll come back and share some more. Delphine had shared a little bit of her, most of her story. But let's go to JP. JP, can you tell us, how did you get out of Congo? What route did you take? I went north and went to Uganda. Delphine went to the jungle and then back to Rwanda. What happened to you? Can you share with us?
You're just asking me how I go into Congo. Basically how I got out of Congo, without even asking me how I got there to begin with, Claude.
Please share how you got there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Claude, I always struggle. I struggle when someone asks me to kind of basically tell them how I go into Congo. It is a heartbreaking and long journey. because basically, as we all know, or some people who may not know, who may be watching in our audience, the war began in 90. The war began in 90, and that's when the war broke. That's when all began. And then soon we know the killings started then, and then all the peace that we knew as young kids almost basically went under the dust. So, well, it was a horrible experience. Claude, as basically Delphine kind of mentioned, we were in Kigali, and I was a young teen, and then basically we went heading the north, which is like a Gikongoro, and then we crossed from Gikongoro, we went to Kangugu, and then we found ourselves crossing the border of Rwanda and Congo. And some of our viewers we remember when we got told that Maboko Likolo language that we didn't even know, which means that basically in Lingala that puts your hands up, So I was young, but I could see things happening, and things happened really, really fast, to a point where basically nobody could have predicted that it was going to happen the same way it happened. Now, this is where now things becomes a bit much more complicated, because obviously I don't know, because it's a long journey, as one of our sister, Delphina just mentioned the earlier on. For me, I don't know whether to start from Rwanda and then go to Congo, and then in Congo, then where I have touched to a place called Koreja Fajiri, that's in Bukavu, and then Kamanyola, and then went into Inera camp, we went into Kashusha camp, and then there was a Dikivu camp. I was a very young child, and then all the way Kisangani, Tingitingi, Mbandaka, Congo, Brazzaville. I don't know. It was a long journey. We're talking about around about 4,000 miles, 4,000 miles by foot. Not even a single. Not even you could not. I mean, basically, we walked till our feet could not work no longer on the tarmac. And then we could use what they call ingata, the one that used to call ingata, to put on our feet so that we can work on a hot tarmac. So it was a long and complicated journey when basically all the bombs done by RPA was being thrown into camps and things like that. A few months, a few years down the line, then they destroyed the camps, they killed the people, and what actually kind of shocked me the most in the camps. When the war happened, you don't say that the Tutsis or the Hutus or the Twas, they were the only one that freed the war, because nobody will actually say, "Oh, the bomb is coming, let me stay here." All the tribes freed into Congo. So now, when all the tribes freed into Congo, when you throw a bomb into the crowd, it doesn't say this is a Hutu, this is a Twa, this is a Tutsi. It kills everybody. So for me, I started thinking, hang on a second. I think now these people, they haven't come to save Rwandans, because when you come to save Rwandans, if you win the war, you will actually unite the Rwandans and call them and say, now the peace have actually landed. You guys, you should return to the country and help build the country. So they started now invading other countries, going to kill people who free, people who doesn't have anywhere to kind of sleep. So I was young, but then again, I start thinking, hang on a second. I mean, how is this one going to end? And I start seeing people being killed left, right, and center. And that's when basically I say to myself, listen, this one is the survival of the fittest. So and then we had our neighbors, we had people that we knew, and like I said, from all ethnic background. And the people start dying, and I say, when I seen that it was the survival of the fittest, then I started running for my life. I was young, but I say, you know what, if I have to die, then I have to die on the go. There was no way that I could stop and then getting butchered as other people who actually left behind got killed. So it was a long journey and a painful one. And also, just to remind the viewers that our age, that we've seen things that we should not have seen. To be honest with you, yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question kind of in a brief, Claude. But that's the journey. And if you have any questions, or if the audience have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank
you. Yeah, I also want Delphine to join the conversation and maybe ask questions. But so you were a little boy when you ran all the way across the Congo. I just want to give the context again. You were you were a young boy, not a little boy. I apologize. I don't actually know how big you were, but when this happened, one, where was your family? Like what happened to your family? I think that's important. And the other thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands, we're talking about the camps being destroyed, but the RPF military, which is the Rwandan military led by Paul Kagame, who is today's president of Rwanda. It started out as a rebellion, a Tutsi rebellion. Tutsi is one of the tribes in Rwanda, or ethnic groups in Rwanda, going up against a government that was predominantly Hutu. And then when they when they took over in '94, they stayed for a couple of years, and then they attacked the Congo and destroyed not only the camps and killed those people, the things that you're describing, but also they killed a bunch of Congolese people. But where was your family when all of this was happening? What happened to your family?
Yeah, I was basically I was with my family and some of the neighbors that we managed to free the war, and somewhere when they started bombing, they ended up killing some of my families as well as in the process, and yeah, so it is a painful one, because when I remember when my parents got killed, we were actually thinking of, actually we are sick and tired of being outside of the country. Let's just check if the peace has actually returned back home so that we can go back home. Because we ran away because of the bombings and stuff like that, and the killings. So we were thinking if the killings and the bombings have stopped, then actually we can go back home, because I was a young boy, but I was studying and stuff like that. So I wanted to go back and resume my studies. So as people were thinking like that, then that's when they started attacking camps and killing people, basically senseless.
So,
yes.
And this journey, how long was that journey? I know Kambale asked Delphine, and I wanted both of you to talk about how long your journey was, and maybe Delphine, you can talk a little bit about your journey also. I want to ask JP first, and then you can give how long your journey was, and I'm going to share how long mine was.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'll be lying if I estimate because I remember that basically we crossed DRC sometime in August 1994, and then basically July, August, and then after that we went wandering around, trying to find somewhere to settle for a bit, and then in about 2 months' time, that's when we were in the camp Kashusha and things like that in Inera and Adikivu, and basically from there, I think we kind of rested for about a year or so, a year and a bit, and basically in 1996 the bombings start. But Claude, I want to kind of elaborate on something here. Mind you that when all that happened, I had friends, I had friends back home before the war started to begin with, and then as we're moving, because I was young, I was trying to say, what happened to my friends that I had, and because I lost them and stuff like that, I was just wondering how I'm gonna get my friends back and our school kind of colleagues and you know what I mean, and then I would be in a kind of a confused mode, to be honest. And then I say, okay, 2 weeks later, and then I'll try to go where we settle down for a month or two. I'll try to make a new friends, and then something again happens, and I had to run and leave those new friends that I have actually made, to a point where you're not gonna believe this, Claude. Yeah, to a point where about 5 years ago, you believe or not, I sat with people. We were just chatting, and then we're chatting somewhere and sitting. Then and I said, hang on a second. Oh, actually, you know what? I think we may be here for a long time. So can you imagine that kind of a traumatic where you've been making friends and losing them, making friends and losing them, making friends and losing them, to a point where your mindset, the mindset becomes as if you will be moving, even when you get somewhere where you have to settle down. You think now that's for a year or two or 5 years, and then I will continue to move, because that's what you've grown doing, and that's a very painful kind of like a traumatic thing, and kind of trauma that we went through. So you can imagine now. I mean, I'm talking to you guys about this now. But if you asked me to give you my conversation about 10 years ago, I wouldn't have given you my conversation. Obviously, Claude, we know each other for a long time. Probably we had a big chat about a few years, more than 10 years, but in openly like this, I wouldn't have talked about it, because it was still kind of raw. It was still kind of painful, and I was still trying to hold on to these horrible memories, as everybody, as some of our audience are doing the same. But I want to invite everybody. It is our story, and we are responsible for our stories. We need to tell it as it is, because if you don't tell your story, nobody else will tell your story. So for me, and I think, to be honest with you, and correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, I think telling your story is a part of healing, and that's a healing of memories, regardless whether or not they are good or bad. But, we got to share, because sharing is caring. Thank you. Studio, back to studio.
JP, there's two more stories that I want you to tell in your testimony, because I know it's long and it can be, but I think it's important. But before that, maybe Delphine can, share what your journey was. And I actually applaud you, JP, for being one of the first people early on for telling your story on camera. I know it doesn't seem like that long ago, but I think the first time that we did your story on camera was in 2012. So most people were not ready to even share these stories, even though they had been traumatized, because the perpetrators do not want you to tell your story. They want to tell your story. So when you say that this is part of healing, it's definitely part of healing. It's also justice. It's restorative justice, where we take our own stories and we tell our own stories. That way, the perpetrator doesn't end up telling our story and changing our story. So Delphine, how long was your journey?
I guess, like JP said, I wouldn't probably be accurate if I said how long, but what I know that from eyes of a child, it was long. But I know that when we came back, by the time I guess we went through the journey and coming back, and there's how do you call it, transitional camp they were putting us through. I believe when I went back to school, it was 98. So, yeah, I wouldn't know how long we exactly stayed in this place or that place, but I know it was long. Yeah, especially I was a child, so yeah, it was long.
So basically, it took years for you to make this journey into the Congo and back. And we don't want to be too graphic, but some of the things that we saw, as JP said, were too graphic as children. The dead bodies, the piles of bodies, and the stench, how it stunk. And I know, JP, you say that the Congolese were saying "Maboko likolo," put your hands up. But for me, the words that I remember is, most of the times when you walked into a place, if it was soldiers, they used to say "Zonga, Zonga." Like, go back, get out of here, go back. But also, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the hospitality of the Congolese people. The Congolese people were some of the nicest people that I ran into. And, for me, when I fled, I went through 4 countries. The Congolese were hospitable. They were generous. I mean, when they had water dripping out of a tap, they would let you sit there for hours and try to get the water. Of course, there were some elements, some mean and bad elements, usually the soldiers, but I'll be remiss if I didn't say thank you to our Congolese sisters and brothers for your hospitality. And I'm sure I speak to, for all three of us. And maybe you can share a little bit of that hospitality, and then we'll go to those two stories, JP, on your journey.
To be honest with you, I would like to kind of highlight that that basically the families that has actually saved my life when the RPA was running after me. I remember the first time I got saved by a Congolese family. It was in Mbandaka when we got surrounded and put in a boat now going, which was the kind of a trap for them to kill us all. And then when they start shooting and everything, I started going basically. I started working on top of the bodies to save my life. So I was young, and then I ran into the forest, and then I slept there for all night. In the morning, the Congolese families were passing by, going to do their farming, and then as a child, I coughed. When I coughed, they just ran coming into the bush to see who was coughing, and there I was shaking and miserable and hungry, and they start telling me in Lingala, which I didn't know then, and then I say, please, I was speaking in Kinyarwanda, and I said that I'm a Rwandese, and then they say, come on, son, come on, otherwise if they catch you here, they will kill you the same way they killed other people. So they ran with me. And they put me in a boat. That's how I actually crossed the river. And that was the story that I remember about the Congolese hospitality, which actually I owe my life to them. And that's why I think they faced a horrible time when the RPA attacked the Congo, because the RPA didn't come to kill only Rwandans. They killed anything that was moving and breathing around well. So that's the hospitality. And when you want me to touch on the other story you said, I'm here. I can touch on it. No problem, Claude. Thank you.
That's actually the story. One of the two stories that I wanted to ask. You were like the last person they threw on the boat before they came and massacred everybody behind you. Before the army, that was invading the Congo, the Rwandan army came and killed everybody behind you, right? Like on the boat, when they threw you on the boat,
yeah.
you happened to be the very last person.
Claude.
Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yes. Just whilst I'm touching on that story, Claude, I would like to remind the viewers, and some of you guys, you may have probably lived the same, or you may have heard the stories of other people that have been through this. But to be honest with you, Claude, if I tell you or tell the viewers how many times I have prayed my last prayers, just because I could not see no way out of where I was, just thinking that, look, this is it now. And all I could do is just to say, God, let's be it. If it's it now, just receive my soul. That's it. Because I was young, I could not do other things. But I will always say that, God, if you spare my life, I will save you. And God will always make a way for me to kind of like go through her and on the other side. So on that particular day, Claude, basically the boat has already gone, because the Congolese were saying that we don't want you guys to die on our soil because your people are coming to kill you. Or we want the boat to take you, and then wherever you go, if you are lucky, to escape, you escape. If you're not lucky, at least you're not on our doorstep. That was in Mbandaka. So now, it was hard, because when actually they brought me in, the boat was already 200 meters into Fleuve Congo. People who know about Mbandaka, they know where Fleuve Congo is a big river, and it's a very big river, and it flows really, really fast. Anyway, so the boat was already about 200 to 300 meters inside the water going, and they say, "Oh no, this young boy, they're gonna kill him in our hands." And then the soldier that was there, a Congolese soldier that was there, blessed them and blessed those people that saved my life. Actually, he took responsibilities, and he took his gun and he shot on the air, and he just shown the boat to come back. just for me. And when the boat came, and I was the last one, and I don't know how you can. I mean, I owe my life to the Congolese that spared me, my own people, my own people, Congolese blessed their soul. They were the one that saved my life instead of my own people, when my own people wanted to have me dead, a young kid. Thank you.
Thank you, JP, for sharing that. Just so I wanted to thank the Congolese also who saved your life. Delphine, if we can come back to you. No, we also want to talk about, there's this image of Rwanda being a very clean country, very progressive, Paul Kagame being a Pan-African, but these stories that we're talking about, this was Kagame chasing us and his army. When you went back, so your journey, my journey was like way out. I went all the way to Uganda and to Kenya, and then came to the US. You went back to Rwanda, and JP was in the Congo still running for years. What did you experience when you went back? Because there's like this deep, stigma and discrimination for people who actually fled into Congo, but maybe other things too. If you can share with the audience. And I know when we got cut off, when we got hacked, it was, you were talking about your family, but I don't know if I want to go back to that because it was getting super emotional. But whatever you can share, please go ahead and share and talk about your experiences back in Rwanda. And then we'll talk about what we experienced on our journey, beyond Rwanda. But all of this that we're saying, just so the audience knows, this is not for you to feel sorry for us. We have healed. This is for us. This is part of it, is a part of healing, but it's also part of restorative justice. We're taking our stories, we're telling our own stories, and we're making sure the world knows these stories that are untold, the stories that are suppressed. And we want to empower you to share your stories. We want to empower everybody to tell your story so you can also be healed. And also, the other thing is we want to share our resilience. And so we'll talk about all of that also. Delphine, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Claude, for giving me another opportunity. And thank you, JP, for sharing your story. I guess sometimes when we are talking, we feel like, okay, someone told me that there's no small story, but sometimes you feel like, oh my God, my journey was long, but, some journeys were much longer. So thank you, JP, for sharing. Going back to your question, Claude. So I guess the journey back, it's another story. There's so many chapters in our stories, and coming back, it was not easy, but because we didn't know where else to go or how to sort of go around. But how it was structured, I don't know, people who I guess come from Congo. So we went to north of Congo. Sorry, North Kivu, and so like through Goma and Ruchuru, and that's north. And coming back, we went through, I don't know how we got to a place called Itongo. So and that's where we came from. And as part of the coming back, you would tell them where you want to go, like sort of if you're north, south, or east or whatever of Rwanda, because we had to go through what they call transition camps. So we asked them to take us to my grandparents. So my dad was born in North, like formerly known as Ruhengeri. So in the North. So that's where we asked to go. So they took us to a transitional camp. We did like training, or they called it training or whatever. And from there we went to my grandparents. So we stayed there for a bit. So I guess part of my journey coming back, it has two parts. So the first part was first to go to my grandparents. So we stayed there. So some of the stigma were around, as I said before we got interrupted. I was saying that throughout that journey, we were separated from my dad. So we lost my dad and we lost my brother. Till now, we don't know what happened to my older brother. My dad came afterwards, but at the time of journeying, we were not with dad, and you had to go to my paternal grandparents. Imagine you're going to your grandparents, like to your dad's family, but dad is not there. So that was, I guess, a different chapter. But also because before 1994, we were living in Kigali. So see, this child or these children were living in Kigali, but when we came back, we had to go to the village, the grandparents. So it was a new training. Like JP was saying before, like there's some habits that you had or some, routine that you had, but you had to suddenly change. You had to adapt. You had to sort of go through all that. So we had to stay there. We had to sort of learn how to go to the farms and to do all things. And so that was a different journey. But the hard time about that was like, how can you come? That dad was not there, but it was sort of dad's family. So sometimes it was really hard to explain what happened, and you just choose to be quiet. And after that, there was some people may probably be aware of the 1998 invasion, what they call the invasion, when there was another sort of wall. It was another journey, but I guess that's a conversation for a different day. After that, we had to move back to Kigali. So going to Kigali, I guess that's where I want to sort of talk to, is the stigma about people who came from Congo, especially people who came from refugee camp. It was so bad that you just stopped talking about it. And luckily in Kigali, no one will really ask you where we were born or what happened or whatever. So you just stop talking about it. So maybe some of my colleagues where I went to high school, or sort of my even neighbors, some of them didn't even know our journey because we were unable to talk about it. We could not talk about it. If you did, you'll be called names. They'll call you Tingi. It's a place in Congo, and there were planes that brought people back, and everyone who were ever refugees in Congo, they were called Tingi. So you'll be stereotyped, you'll be called names, you'll be teased, you'll be, so you just stop talking about it. And like you asked, Claude, I guess the discrimination about it is that I was unable to talk about my journey. Like JP said before, I think the way I'm comfortable talking about it now, or the way I have a place, I have an opportunity or platform to talk about it, it was so different in Rwanda, like back in 98, 99, forward. So I guess some people who, like my colleagues, for example, who know me in that period, there's so much that they didn't know about me. Like they thought they only knew my two siblings. They didn't know about the other third sibling, that my older brother who we lost, because it was so hard to explain, where did he go, what happened, whatever. It was just so hard to explain. And then I just stopped talking about it. And I remember myself, I was so quiet. And instead of sort of starting to talk or saying things and feel like I'm suffocating because I have more to tell, but I can't, I will just be quiet, or I'll be sort of doing other things, like, games, like playing at school. I'm talking about school. So I'll be doing games. I'll be maybe, singing in a choir or something, so that I didn't have that, I was unable to talk about my journey. And I don't know how much you want me to elaborate on this, but the fact is, you would only talk about, Congo. We had to develop like sort of codes, with only people who you knew then, like who you shared the journey, or that they've gone through the journey, and then you'll be talking about some places, but you didn't say Congo, you didn't say camp, you didn't say stuff like that. So we had to develop some codes so that people will know what we're talking about. Otherwise, you'll be called names or you'll be put in a box. So I guess briefly, that's how life looked like. And I guess even until recently, so many people, they don't know our journeys, like, because we've been so, it was not spoken about. It was not spoken about, and if you did, you just be called names. So most of us chose to just, I guess, park that part of our lives. and we had to hold it. We had to hold it, and as you both said, this is a time, it's a healing journey. Yeah.
I want to ask you, how did it feel when you finally told your story and like freely told your story where you didn't have to hold back?
Oh, it felt good. Like I started sort of talking to, I guess, only the closest people who, I got comfortable enough with, like, to share. But I guess coming, sharing. I remember we sort of openly shared in a Rwanda program in Rwanda. So it was hard because it was heavy. It's like I started relieving some parts of it, but it was good. It was a relief. It was encouraging to say that, look, I have time now I have an opportunity to talk about my journey. I don't have to hide. I don't have to feel like what's those people are gonna say or whatever. So it was a relief, and it's been easier since then. It's been easier since then. And like JP said, I encourage everyone to share your stories. This is part of our journeys. We cannot change it. We cannot change it, but we can just accept it. And empower each other to. We've survived because of a reason. We here, we're still alive. So many people didn't make it. So we've made it. There's no need to hold back. There's no need to be ashamed or to be, worried about what people are going to say, because everyone has a story. Everyone has gone through a journey, but you need to be brave enough to be able to share it. Yeah.
JP, I want you to share the story about how you used to, when you were super hungry, at some point it was so bad, how did you use to get food? But also, as you tell that story, can you also share like how you experienced it? That we're talking about post-genocide Rwanda. And of course, that extension is into the Congo, because there were hundreds of thousands of Rwandans, actually over 1 million Rwandan in the Congo after the genocide. And, that's a part of the population that we were in. And if you can share some of the discrimination that you experienced, and we're talking about Rwandan to Rwandan discrimination. But I want you to start with the story about how you used to get food.
But yeah, listen, you're gonna have to pay back. You're gonna have to pay back with you, Claude. But I'll have to share this story because also that's when I remember this, you can imagine a young orphan, just running behind everyone else, because I didn't have anybody with me. I was just running after other people and basically following the crowd. But then obviously had nothing whatsoever. No clothes to change, no bag, no nothing. Basically, all I knew, I was just praying today. That's all. Mm-hmm. When you say that, what about changing the clothes? What about having shower? What about listen, man, having shower where? That's something that you don't think of. You don't think of when you are in that kind of situation. For me, the way I used it, I want to touch on something. The way I used to have a shower or to shower, if I'm lucky, maybe in the next 5 to 1 week to reach where there is a river, where they basically, because now we are into Equatorial Forest, where the hyenas will come in the night when you're sleeping and grab someone, and you will hear people screaming when they are gone. So anyway, when we reach a river, and then I will just take off my clothes and wash them there, and then put them back on, and then carry on. That was the shower. That was the shower done there, and the washing done there, and then I'll carry on. However, actually the touching part is when you're hungry and you can't find the food. So I used to be hungry and beg for food for other Rwandans, and these are the refugees as well. And as I'm speaking to you guys now, know that some of you have actually betrayed you on. So I'm running, and I'm a young child. I don't have no parents, no nothing. But when I see you feeding your kids, the little you have, I'm not saying that you had many to kind of share with everybody, but all I wanted, it was a handful stuff to keep me going for another mile or two. And at that time people will not give you. So I done it once, I done it twice, and then I sat down and I said, God, no. I haven't survived the bullet to actually to be killed by hunger. It's not gonna happen. So my own survival instinct that popped into my head, it was like, hang on, you need to think about how to survive. When you can't find the fruits in the forest to eat that are edible, to eat them, then you need to develop a system that will keep you going. So what did I do? And this is the honest truth. Me, I'm not here to lie to anybody. I'm telling my story. I'm not here to lie to anybody. I'm telling my story. And what did I used to do? I used to actually see, now I'm just basically watching now. I said, no. There's only one solution for me to survive. What was the solution? The solution was only one left for me. It was to sit down somewhere and watch anybody that has food that is ready, that are feeding their kids. They are sitting down and they are eating with their kids. My own trick was actually not to go and beg anymore. It was to just go and dig in. I will go and dig in, start eating like one of their kids. By the time they realize that I'm not one of their kids, I've eaten like a couple of handful of food, and then they say, "Hey, yo!" When they say like this, and then I stand up and run, and I will keep repeating that survival method till God knows when someone can actually, and I've done that to so many people. And if I done that to you or your kids, guys, if you're watching, I'm sorry, that's the only option I had. But I had to survive. Probably some of you guys watching, you have seen a kid that was kind of digging into your kids' food without asking permission. And I'm sorry, that was the only option that I had left, guys. And this is it. That's the honest truth. There you have it, Claude. And that's it. That's my story. I tell it as it is, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you for your honesty. I think the story, it's nice that we can laugh about it right now, but I can only imagine when you're that hungry and you just say, you know what, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm going to take 2 scoops and run, and that's what it takes. And that's what it takes, But we're talking about also like, how were you discriminated along that journey? If anything that you can share.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Claude, it was a hard journey. It was hard journey, my brother. Even like, thinking about it back, it brings back the kind of hard memories and the horrible ones as well. But obviously, it's still there. But now we can, like you said, we can laugh about it. But back then, it was not a laughing matter. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, the way I've been discriminated was when I reach somewhere and is on a proper river where you cannot cross. Unless you have parents to pay for you or people to pay for you for the journey to cross the river. I remember at one point when we got to a river, but it was hard to a point where for me to cross, I had to wait for the last people to go, and then made something like, I can't even remember how you call them. I don't know if it's a raft or something that you make through the trees and banana trees and things like that, and just use them and you throw them and bashes, you throw them in the river, and someone who know how to swim will use them to swim. So that's pretty much what I done. It was tough, man. I'm gonna have to pass it back to you, Claude. Otherwise, if you give me a microphone, I can speak to you tomorrow, mate. Back to you, Claude.
No, thank you for doing that. If I can just share for me the discrimination that I experienced. So again, I took a totally different route, and all of you went through some rough times. I was also when we got to Uganda, I was separated from my parents. I was picked up by people in uniforms. I don't know if they were police or soldiers, and it happened twice. I escaped the first time. The second time, they took us a long, long way. And then they stopped someplace. It was a church. And the kids that were captured, and I think this is kind of the same thing that they do in Rwanda, where they pick up all these children on the streets and they take them to all of these concentration camps type of things. So when it happened, I instead of going to get water with the rest of the kids, I went to hide. And they looked and looked, and when they didn't find me, they ended up leaving. they were just looking at the count, like, hey, we had this many and we're missing one. And I know at that point, at that place, I was so scared seeing, their feet, and they were so close. And I just felt like even breathing, it was going to like give me away. I was that scared. Like I should not be breathing so that, I can survive, so that they don't come and kill me, or they don't capture me and do whatever they were going to do to me, since I had already like tried to get away. So when they left, I walked for days and nights. And I do not remember, I didn't have a clock and I didn't have a calendar. I just know I walked for days and nights, and I ended up being picked up by a Kenyan driver, a truck driver who took me to Kenya. And I ended up getting taken in by a Kenyan family. I lived with a Kenyan family for months. And it wasn't until I met this Congolese friend who showed me how to make a collect call. And I called my father, who was in the US, and I called the American aid worker that rescued us from Congo. And that's how I was able to make a connection. They made the connection with my mother in Uganda, with my two sisters. And we ended up running into each other literally at the bus station on my way. At one point, I was registered at the UN, the UNHCR, if you look in the records, as an unaccompanied minor. This is when I was in Kenya. And I was getting some money, and I was saving that money, and I was literally leaving without telling that family. And I ran into my mom and my sisters, and we came back and stayed with this family. But what's happened to kind of speed up, we stayed in Kenya for a year while we were processing papers to come to the US. And then once I started telling my story is when I started experiencing discrimination. Because what's happened is the government of Rwanda has an official narrative of the genocide. And this is something that basically is like they wrote it on paper and decided this is everybody's experience. And that is not my experience. My experience includes how the group, the RPF that's in power, killed people before the genocide, killed people during the genocide, but also how the extremist Hutus in the genocide killed people, and that they almost killed me. And because I tell the whole story in the way it is, they asked me to change my story. I told them I'm not going to change my story. They kept asking for me to change my story. They wanted to pay me to change my story. I refused to do that. And what they did was they basically said, no, we make a decision on who is a survivor and who is not. And I told them, no, surviving is an experience. I survived the genocide in Rwanda by my experience, and I'm not going to change that. And for that, they basically decided that what they're going to do is to say that I'm fake. I'm a fake survivor, and that my story is fake, and that I am an imposter. And all that because I refuse to put my story, I refuse to change my story. I refuse to lie about what I lived. I refuse to lie about what happened to other Rwandans. And so now what happens today is like I get all this harassment online and offline at conferences. And I know that we had Freeman introducing the show. We have videos of like people coming to conferences where I'm speaking to heckle. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, we have death threats and things like that. And all of that because I refuse to change my story. So that's the type of discrimination that also happens in Rwanda. If you survive the genocide, but you do not tell the story that is the official narrative that is controlled by the government, they put you in a category of basically people to trash. And thankfully, I don't live in Rwanda, so I'm able to continue to tell my story. I mean, it's happened at so many places, various institutions, schools, universities, even at the UN when I'm speaking there. It's amazing that is still post-genocide Rwanda, this country that you hear and you think, oh, this is such a wonderful place. You know, it's what is the thing? Kumbaya. Everybody's singing Kumbaya. They killed each other. Now they're singing Kumbaya. That's not the case. The government of Rwanda continues to hunt people down and kill them. And as I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast, before we got hacked, one of the people who sheltered so many people, who sheltered over 1,200 people during the genocide, is actually in Rwanda. He didn't go there on his own. His name is Paul Rusesabagina. He is the subject, the person the movie Hotel Rwanda was made about, which most of the audience probably knows Rwanda because of that film. He was kidnapped because he also refuses to talk about the Rwandan genocide in the way that the government wants to talk about it, because he talks about these atrocities that we're talking about surviving in the Congo, because he talks about the repression inside of Rwanda. So many people are discriminated. We're just sharing our own stories, but we refuse to use our stories to victimize other people. We refuse to use our stories to practice ethnic supremacism and ethnic extremism and anything to do with creating violence. And that's where I want to take this conversation. You guys have decided to not only heal, but share your stories. And there is a purpose. We survived. We didn't survive these genocides so that we can be quiet, so that we can watch people die and get killed and be brutalized. And all of us have basically decided we're going to use our stories to make the world a better place by sharing these stories. I didn't start telling my story publicly until I read the book of Frederick Douglass. And I was inspired. He was a 7-year-old boy sold into slavery in America, freed himself, taught himself how to read and write, freed himself at 21, and was one of the biggest abolitionists. And that inspired me, because when I read that book, I was almost the same age, and I was like, man, I'm so useless. But then I was like, but I have this story, and there's millions of young kids, girls and boys, who are being brutalized and killed in masses in the Congo. Congolese, millions of Congolese people. And then I said, you know what? I got to tell my story, at least so that the world knows what happens to children during genocides and during wars. And that's one of the things that I wished when at one point I was actually like, I was at my own grave about to get killed. And I said, you know what? I want to see, I want the world to know what in the world is going on. Like, we cannot be slaughtered like this. So that's what inspired me to actually start telling my story. But again, the government of Rwanda wants to tell me how to tell my own story. And I tell them, hell no, I'm not gonna let you tell my story, and I'm not going to change my story, because, you know, it is my story. And again, it's not gonna help anybody heal if I go and lie. But if I can tell my story and somebody else sees themselves in it, then I'm happy to do that. So let me turn it back over to Delphine and JP, so you guys can also talk about your own resilience. Like, what is the purpose of telling your stories? Why do you actually share your stories?
Thank you, Claude. Again, thanks for sharing your story as well, and thanks, JP, for sharing those parts. Like, there's so many things that now, like Claude said, we can laugh about, but it was some serious business then. But we survived, and we've managed to move on, and here we are, talking about our stories, Yeah, so I guess the reason why I decided to share is because it's my story. It's not complete. Like, for example, you have to go, somewhere, you will be talking, and then you like sort of pause, think, or look around who you are sitting with to think, oh, maybe I should just jump that chapter. But that's your life. Why do you have to sort of be, to stop? Why do you have to be fake? Because I think so many people, they're trying to fit in certain boxes, or they're trying to have that picture, but they're trying to be someone that they are not. So I say, you know what? Especially when you grow up, you think, what's the worst thing that can happen if I share my story? And also I know that some people didn't develop as much resilience as I did, or as we did. And some people are still suffering, some people are still hurting, and they think they are alone. And you know, when we don't share stories, I feel, oh, I've had it worse, and the other one thinks they've had it worse. But in fact, when we share so much. We share a lot of memories. We share a lot of similarities. The other day, I was talking to someone. I said, it sounded like as if we had the same journey. I said, maybe we're running together, whatever. Like it was, we laughed about it at that moment, but it's true. So sharing our stories empowers us to accept it. You know, it's our story. We're not gonna change it, and nothing's gonna change it. Even if they hackers and they don't want us to talk about it, but this is our story. We have to share it, and so many people share the same experience. So part of that, the resilience is that we are not stuck in that moment. You know, we've healed. We're moving on. We keep helping others to heal, and we do different activities through that journey, and we empower other people who are still stuck somehow or who are unable to talk about it, and we testimony to our stories, and also, like you said, you know, it's not right for someone to come and tell you, oh, you should talk about that part of your life, but not that part of your life. Why? So, yeah, and I'm hoping to empower other people to talk. And coming back a little bit to what you were saying, Claude, when we started talking, when we had our first testimony, I remember people coming and just calling us names, just someone you can clearly see that they don't know you. Someone that you can clearly see that they don't even know what they're talking about. They just want to stigmatize you. They want to call you names and hoping that you will stop, but it didn't stop us. You know, in fact, it showed me that some people are either ignorant or they just need to sort of be educated, or some of them are just doing their job, which is, I think, it's a terrible job to sort of sit there and act like as a robot, making sure that you're calling people names or you're just trying your best to make them silent. It's not fair that anyone should have to be silenced about their own history, you know, their own journeys. So I guess I was just talking to that as well, because when we started speaking, some people are like, oh, why do you have to say that? I'm like, that's my journey. What am I going to do about it? Or what can you do about it? So and it's sort of more, it's encouraging to see that more people are speaking out, and we were children, you know, and like JP said before, the bullets or the bombs, they don't discriminate. When you're being fired at, you have to run. You have to run for your life. You're not gonna stop like, oh, I'm from north or from west or whatever is gonna discriminate. No, the bombs don't discriminate, and you end up you have to keep going. You know, you have to keep running because you have to run away from the bullets, you know, and you end up in Congo and you end up going God knows where, because everyone had different journeys, you know. That's not your fault. They didn't choose to do that, you know. But then why should you be silenced for talking about your experience? So I guess
I think the other piece of it, Delphine, just want to remind everybody that we actually started out earlier and we got hacked, but guess what, we're back. We're not going to be like, we're not going to back down. It's not going to happen. So no matter what happens, no matter how many things they're trying to suppress these stories, we're going to tell the stories, because part of what you're saying and JP was saying, and JP, I'll turn it over to you, is we are also honoring the people who have been killed. Like those who were killed, we need to make sure that they're never forgotten. You know, never again also includes never forget. We must absolutely tell the story so that the world knows, and that those people do not die in vain. And eventually we'll get justice, you know, and part of it is this restorative justice. And JP, just, you know, want you to also share, why do you share your story? Like, what is your purpose, and why are you not bitter, you know, after going and having to go and, like, you know, jump into somebody's plate and eat some food, you know, walking to where your feet couldn't, you know, you couldn't feel your feet anymore. You had to use like grass, you know, on your feet. You were the last person, you know, saved by the Congolese people at that river at Mbandaka. And, you know, why are you not bitter? Why are you not so like angry and doing harm?
Thank you very much, Claude, and the viewers. This is the main reason why I'm not bitter, and I don't hate anybody. Number one, I've been taught manners. I've been taught by my parents the manners. Thank them, you know, God bless their soul. They passed away, but they left me with a gift that someone cannot take away. So they taught other people, and also they taught me that, you know, tomorrow will always be a better day than today. So now, I want you to listen to this here. I want you to listen to this, Claude. Yeah. For me, from when I was 16, because obviously the journey went on, and then growing up in that journey, and as soon as I reached the 16, even into 17, I was always protective of any Rwandan, regardless of who they were. I mean, some of the guys that who knows me from back then, they can tell you that for me, I always protected my fellow Rwandans from especially young people, because I will always fight for young people not to be discriminated or to be put into or to be sold out, basically, to be sold out or to be snitched. You know what I'm saying? So some of the guys who know me, who grown up together, they can give you the testimony, and they know me better than anyone else. So anyway, the most reason why I'm not bitter, Claude, for me, I had the chance to kind of like sit down and think about twice. What do you get? What do you get when you actually bitter? I mean, it doesn't actually harm you more than someone who is actually oppressing you, because the oppressor and oppressed, you know, you can only be better than someone who is oppressing you. So for me, I chose to go the best way, where I actually forgive people and live better. I remember. So now, I remember when I was having a conversation with people who survived in Byumba. So that's between 90 and 94, but nobody talks about it. So when I was talking to survivors who survived the Byumba bombings and stuff like that, I could hear their story, and their story was touching my heart. Though I had a bitter story of my life, but people in Byumba, they had also their stories. The Nyakyonga camps. You people, I mean, you were not too young to know that the people who left Byumba and whatever, and those who get in the river, they went to Nyakyonga camps. And I was a child, but I didn't know what was happening or when it would end. But I could see people suffering in their own land, in their own country. Anyway, so moving on to that, I always have a lot of good friends who survived 94 genocide, basically who were being hunted and stuff like that. We kind of like sit down. These are the true survivors. We sit down and have a conversation, and, you know, sit on the round table. And obviously, when I'm talking about people who survived, I'm not those ones that think they are too smarter than everybody else. That, you know, I will pass you behind you and then stab you in the back. No chance. Them ones stand no chance in my view. But someone who is a genuine survivor, who knows what it feels to be in pain, of course I will sit down and hear their stories, and I will sympathize with them. You know, and I don't know what they've been through, but I can only imagine, you know, based on the stories that I hear from them, and sympathize with them. So that's a big one. So you people, though we have been in a bitter story, we need to actually to allow our heart to embrace other people's stories. Because if you are telling your story, or if I'm telling my stories to be heard by other people, I should be open to receive other people's story too. That's what healing of memories means, basically, to be honest. So this is me now. I kind of hold on so long not to tell my story. I had my story to tell, but I gave myself time to think when and how to tell my story, because even now, as I'm speaking to you guys now, you have not even scratched the surface of my story. Because imagine from Rwanda all the way by foot into Congo, a journey that took around between 6 to 8 months. I can't tell it to you in 1 hour or 2 hours even, mate. This is a big book. This is a big book for me to tell. So as we continue to have some conversations, I'll be tapping into the ones that I still have in a store and maybe share, so that this can actually go out there and bless somebody. And as it comes, basically, as you said, wouldn't the people silence you? Or listen, I've passed that stage, mate. I've passed that stage of someone coming to tell me that, oh, do you know what? You can't tell your story. I mean, who would that be? That will stand in front of me or send me some little messages and say, oh, why are you talking? I've passed that stage. And to be honest with you, if someone dares send me those messages, I may read them, and sometimes I won't even respond to them, because they don't know what basically they are talking about. They are sick. They need someone to go and give them therapy. And those little agents that work for the oppressors, those little agents, even if we meet on the street, they can't even ask me where I'm going, because for me, listen, I survived the bullet when I was a little teen. So now that I'm a big man, then that's when someone's gonna come and tell me, oh, don't talk. Listen, I'm gonna tell some people right now, and I want to send this message right and rather than clear. I want to send this message. You fake friends, I don't need them in my life. If you think you can actually keep your stories, and I don't want to tell, that's okay. And if you don't want to tell your stories, by the way, that's fine. That's okay. I'm not forcing you to tell your story, or I'm not forcing you to be on my side. I want to send a clear signal and a clear message. Do not force me not to tell my story, because your choice is not my choice. Because I'm not identical twin to anybody. Fake friends, fake girlfriends, fake what. Listen, now I'm actually getting some new good friends that I can see who are on the same wavelength with me, who are on the same frequency with me. And that's the ones that I need. The fake friends need to get out and give a space to some good friends to come and we continue our journey. We laugh about our stories, and we tell our stories. But fake friends, I have no time for them. Thank you very much, Claude. That's what I can say.
Can you also, the studio is saying drop the mic, but there's actually a question, but I can hear it in the ear saying drop the mic. But really, there's a question that I asked earlier, but I want to ask it again because Delphine talked about it. How did you feel when you were able to actually tell your story publicly? How did it feel for you to finally be able to tell a story that somebody wants to stop you from telling?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always had the courage to tell my stories. But sometimes for me, I was the only one that actually hold it down to give it time so that I can tell my stories when I'm ready. I say, you know what? I'm going to tell my stories, but I'm not ready. Nobody has ever told me not to tell my stories or trying to stop me, because nobody can stop me. But however, the first time I told my stories, I shared my stories with some people who I knew that would actually understand my stories. And for me, that's the best feeling you can have. Actually, letting it go of what you have kept for a long time. It's like basically someone has actually taken a big load off your back and put it down, sir. That's how it feels, and it feels. I think I'm lying. They should tell their stories as well and see how it feels. That's what I can say, Claude. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, I haven't answered that question here, but for me, when I first started, because I knew that they would come after me for not telling the story they want me to tell, and I guess a part of it is just you reliving the memories. I couldn't sleep the night before. If I've got an event and I'm gonna tell my story, man, for the first I don't know how long, it was I wouldn't sleep that night. I would sleep for just a few hours. Then I would go, tell my story. And then the night after, I was so tired and knocked out. But for me, it always feels, every time I get to tell my story, even though I get to tell it so many times, hundreds of times a year to so many different audiences, it's liberating because I know that nobody's going to write my story. I'm going to write my own. And you were talking about a book. We should all put these stories in our books. Everybody I encourage everybody that has a story, write a book, tell your story, make a video, tell your story. And as JP said, if you don't know what that kind of load is like, tell your story and see what it feels like. There are questions from the audience. I want to ask a few questions, and then you guys can pick which ones you want to answer. One is, how did you know who to trust and where to actually go or hide? You know, where the groups dispersing with adults, you would move with for security. Like, did you move around with adults? I mean, I think all of us basically depends. If they drop a bomb, you just run. Which sometimes, like, people will ask the question, like, why did you go to Congo? It's like, hello, like, what else are you gonna do? If a bomb drops right here, you just run to the safest place, and that happened to be the safest place. But it's the question is, how did you know where to hide? And then there's a comment from Denise Zaneza that says, thank you, Jean-Pierre, for telling your story. It needs to be told. The world needs to know what happened. The truth shall set everybody free. Without the truth, there can be no justice. That was a comment. Thank you. And then there's a comment from Naomi Wamahoro. Everybody has a story to tell. Thank you guys for sharing your stories. And then there's somebody who looks like they went journey, but I cannot remember if it's you, JP, or Delphine. Someone named Darlene Mahoro says, I also say that I made a long journey, but now I think it's not true. I just reached Bunyakili. That time, the RPF army was already there, and they forced us to go back to Rwanda. Thank God we're alive. Thank you for sharing your testimony, Darlene. I'm still looking for questions, but maybe we can go to the question that I asked at the very beginning. How did you know who to trust and where to actually go or hide? With that, before I turn it over to you both, there is another comment from Dean Claudine that says, JP, sorry for this. Not the first time I've heard your sad history. All of you be strong, and I'm glad you grew up and strong. So the question is, how did you know where to hide?
I think I need to jump on that one, Claude. Thank you, and I want to thank the audience for actually, comforting us. We don't want it to really you guys to for you guys to feel sorry for us because we have passed that stage. But thank you for actually supporting us and showing you love and support. Now, if I say you don't know that where you are running is safe, because obviously where you are running to, you may be ambushed there and be killed because the enemy can make a noise and shoot behind you. And when you're running when you are in of you may be ambushed and killed. But the problem is where I mean, some people also who have run that direction, which are not where we run, they probably died there. It's not, you don't know where is safe. Only you are guided by God. That's all I can say, because otherwise, how do you expect a 13, 14, 15-year-old young boy to survive when someone who is 30, who is 40, who is 25 who do not survive? You cannot explain. It's a mystery, and that's why even for me, for the first 1 year, I even struggled myself to. Because I was just fighting. I was having an infight with God and say, God, if you exist, I mean, why my parents? Why can't you take me? Listen, leave my parents alone, or other siblings, But that's something that you cannot control, because everything has the beginning and the end. So it was a painful journey. And God cannot put you through something that He will not help you to overcome. So I thank God for my life. I thank God for all of you guys' life and everybody who survived my killings and atrocities, regardless of who done it. Because I fully condemn anybody that killed, because all the killers are killers, and we're supposed to actually to blame anyone that actually killed anybody, because nobody has the right to put a stop to someone's life. That's what I can say. So surviving it was not determined by us. We done our bit. Just basically we took one step, and God took 99 ahead of us and protect us and sheltered us. That's what I can say. Otherwise, there's no other explanations on how one would know where the safety is. Otherwise, if we knew where was safe, you would probably have called your neighbor, have called your dad, have called your mom, or you cannot explain to anybody, to be honest, and you just basically run. You just run. You don't even ask these second questions. Where they go, where the heart and sixth sense it took you. That's where you went. Thank you, guys.
I want to also give Delphine a chance to talk about that. And Delphine, ready to answer the question. There's a couple other comments here. Someone said, what is lacking is a regime that can heal all the souls. And then Elenius Kanga, my man, only just joined. These are very challenging stories. JP is funny, I agree. Good to see someone putting some humor to what must have been a very, very bad experience. Meanwhile, has Claude grown a good team? Yes. Delphine, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Claude. And again, thanks, JP. It's hard to hear your story, but it's part of our stories, But I guess coming back to a little bit about, I wanted to speak about why we're not bitter, because like JP said, what would it achieve? What would achieve? Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story, even like it doesn't matter if you survived in 90 or 94 or 96 or 98 or 2000 or even now, because people are still surviving. So everyone has a story. Like Claude said, that narrative, the official narrative, it's not common. It's not the same, for everyone. Even people who had the same sort of the same journey, like for example, even if they passed through the same place, they might have totally different stories. So it's important for everyone to tell their stories. It doesn't matter when or what part or how or where they were born or where they passed through. Everyone's journey is different. And the moment all of Rwandans acknowledge that, I need to acknowledge your story and you need to acknowledge mine, and we need to support each other through healing, then it won't happen, because no pain is heavier than the others. No death is better than the others. So we need to sort of come together and understand that we all have our stories and accept that they are different. And don't tell me how to tell my story, because I'm the only one who survived it, who lived it. And I shouldn't tell you how to tell your story, because also the other part is there's a part, sometimes you're not ready to talk about some parts of your stories. So you need to sort of walk through that person. You cannot force them. You cannot restrain them. You cannot say, oh, if you go there, go softer on that or whatever. No. So, but we're not bitter, because like JP said, we've been raised better. And we understand that we need to build a better tomorrow. We need to build a better community. So being bitter wouldn't help. So we have to help each other through this, because we're in this together, guys, liking it or not. Claude, coming back to the point, can you ask me again what you asked?
Yeah, there was a question about how did you know who to trust during your journey, and how did you even pick places to run to?
Yeah, and I think that got into me, because you don't know. You don't know. That's the thing. You don't know if I should go left or right. You don't have it's like flipping a coin. You don't know where you're going. And I guess like JP said, it's only God. And I believe that when it's not your time, when it's not your second, you cannot go. And as hard as it is, but you cannot go if it's not your time. You don't know who to trust. You don't know which way. You don't know if you go left or right. You don't know if sometimes you get to points where we all look the same, and sometimes there's no way at the end of the road. And some people, they had to sort of just make a way through out of nowhere, So you didn't know who to trust. And also, as I said before, some of the time, at some certain points of the journey, will miss your family. You know, you'll be separated, and then by God's miracle, you come back together. But you didn't know in that time, you just move away from the bullets. You know, that's the only thing. You move away from the bullets and from the bombings. And at some stage, you don't even know where that is, because you'll be sounding as if it's coming from everywhere. You know, you wouldn't really locate where they are coming from, or you just follow the crowd. You know, if everyone's going that direction, you're not gonna go back in different direction because you don't know what's there. But I guess the other thing that you know, came back to me when you asked that question is, you know, when we, you know, we're surviving, we have different people, people would be groups. As a group, people will stick together. You know, like JP said, like like it was a wild jungle, like it was wild animals. And even we didn't know who, you know, because the army, the RPF that were chasing us, they will ambush people. They will, you know, they will randomly take people. So people stand, like where we went through, people would tend to stay together to sort of increase the group, I guess, strength. But also when people said, because some people would go thinking they're going home, but we were not sure if they're going home, because some people thought they were going to actually be brought back to Rwanda, and they disappeared. So it was just luck. It was like a gambling. It was like you didn't know what to do or who to trust. You just, you know, pray to God that that's the right choice. Yeah, and I think that's what my mom had to do. What we had to come back, because it was, you know, we'd lost my brother, we'd lost my dad. It was my mom and my older sister and my younger brother. And in that, out of nowhere, and in that situation, she just made a decision. She said, you know, we have to go back. And she prayed to God that that's the safest option, you know, to save her children. And I'm forever grateful for the decision she made, because it was not easy, and she didn't know if it was the right one, but thank God it was. So, yeah. Sorry, I'll give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. Thank you for that. I have a comment here before I add to what you just said, which is it's a comment from Wen Chieza. Wen, hola, ¿cómo está? She says, thanks for sharing your stories. For it preserves the experiences from heart to heart, and memory doesn't go against reconciliation. And I think it's also a beautiful way to honor those who are no longer with us. It's very similar to another comment from Siku Page, sister from Zim. Good to see you. Saying, yes, write a book. Don't let the other side write a book about your experience. And also says, it was in response to JP, that bitterness yields hate, and that kills you internally, and you won't experience what God has in store for you. So to your point, Delphine, about not knowing where to run, I remember one time we got bombed. Like the house that we were sheltering in got hit by a bomb. We all ran. We huddled in this room. We sat there for like 3 hours. And then right after, at some point, we all started to look around. Like a few things happened, of course. You know, one of the funny stories was there was this woman who was in the shower when the bomb hit, and she came running, and she just sat in the middle of everybody, you know, like nothing was happening. None of us even noticed until hours later that she was totally, fully naked. And I also remember that at some point we looked up at the ceiling, and the ceiling had actually caved in. So it's like, you don't know where to run. We ran into the spot that was actually hit. Thankfully, you know, whatever hit the roof did not pierce all the way down into the house. But JP, I think you had some comments you wanted to add. I want to take a couple of more comments, if you can go ahead, and then we wrap this up. And we apologize again for the delays since we got hacked.
Yeah, no problem. I don't actually have any comments to make. I just wanted to ask you, you and Delphine a question. I just want to find out whether it was me only that actually me only that prayed the last prayers. You guys in your journeys where you took a different route, did they actually reach a point where you say, you know what, I think this is my last, and say, you know what, this is it. Maybe prayed or something like that in the hope that that you may pray God may save you, because I told you that it happened to me 1,000 times. I mean, can you just, I don't know, have not asked this question to someone else. Can you guys tell me you kind of, when you reach like that stage where you've been pushed to the last wall, and what happened? Did you, or I mean, in any beliefs you have, did you pray to God or did you pray to Allah? Or I mean, just tell me basically at that moment. I mean, you've been, putting us on a kind of hot seat for a moment, Claude. I wanted to start probably from you, because, and then maybe Delphine, because I don't know if it's me only that actually prayed the last prayers, or if you two at some point you reach the point where you say, you know what, I'm tired, Just
Yeah.
if you can share with me, please.
Oh, first when it was during the genocide, when the bombings and the storms of bombing bullets started, and I was shaking, my stomach was bubbling, and I was pacing back. I thought I had to go to the bathroom and do a number 2, and no, I couldn't go because every time I walked one way, an explosion hit, and I went the other way. Then we went into hiding at the doghouse, and we would hear people inside of our house looking to kill us. And I was saying the prayers. And then at multiple points, there were times when the explosion was so loud, you were just like, I would check myself and be like, am I still alive? And almost want to get on my knees and pray and just be thankful that I'm still alive. But no, you can't do that. You got to run. And then when they had me and my mother digging our own grave, I didn't actually say a last prayer. I just had a last wish. I felt so lonely, and I felt so, it was like the feeling of loneliness. It was the worst thing that was killing me, in spite of how scared and terrified I was. But the last wish I had was, I want the world to know what's happening here. And, somehow I was spared. And so now today I'm living a bonus life, I'm living the extra, because those days it was over. It was over for me. And then there was a point when there was a time when after I skipped those armed men and uniformed men in Uganda, I actually regretted not being killed. Like I was like, why am I still alive? Why am I still living? And here I am. I'm a teenager, but I'm like, this was the wrong choice to stay alive. Thankfully, it didn't last that long. I was able to, I got rescued and made it. But yes, no, it was not just one time. It was many times. And then I, at some point, stopped praying and started regretting actually being alive. Delphine, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Claude. Thank you very much, Claude, for sharing. Sorry, Delphine, just let me kind of jump in for a bit. Thank you, Claude, for sharing. I remember the first time I prayed the last prayer. It was when the Interahamwe stopped me in the Mubumbano. That was back in Rwanda, where they were rounding people and killing them. And I was rounded into the people who were going to be killed. And also, I prayed the last prayer when other people in front of me, because it was like a queue. In front of me were being killed, and as I was on the queue, some lady called Bertilda saved my life, and God bless her, because I'd never seen her again then. But she saved my life, and that was the first time in Rwanda, and that was in 94. And there we are, we are here to tell our stories, and nobody. And these are the stories that one cannot make up, because we've got witnesses, people who seen us living this life. When someone stands there and say, "Oh, you lied," we can't lie. We passed that stage of lying. We can never lie to anybody, because there's people living actually, people who can say, oh, this is true, what this young man is saying, because they were there when this was happening. Thank you very much, Claude. Delphine, please share with us. Claude, I'm not taking over from you. I just wanted to jump in and kind of highlight that. Thank you.
Thanks both of you, Claude and JP. I guess it's like throughout it was just praying, and even before that, my mom, like she was a big believer, and I think that's what got through most of them of the journey. It just prayed and more prayers and more prayers, and hoping that that God. I hope that this is the right choice. If I have to go right or left, like it was just the belief and the strength that it came out of, I don't know, way. But I'm thinking all of the time, like especially when the first started bombing the camps. I would never forget this sound. It was like whatever they called it, bitibe or whatever. It's like a big noise, and it was so loud. And because it was in the middle of the night, we could see bullets flying in the air. So that's when you got it physically sick. You feel like, oh my God, this is it, and we're just praying throughout, man, just throughout. At some stage, the adults or they would try to hide. For example, if they're having like some negotiation or whatever, they were trying to hide us, or sort of to close our eyes so that we don't see most of the horrific stuff. But it was just throughout, man, just praying for God to get through it, praying to see the next day, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a comment about, tell the audience how, those who continued in the Congo were massacred down the, when some were forced to go into Rwanda, like Delphine and JP, you ran all the way across the Congo, but I think we told that story. So I think because we got hacked earlier and we're way over our broadcast time, we're gonna have to cut it short. Thank you all for your comments and questions, but I want to remind you all that today, February 27th, is 6 months since the kidnapping of one of the people who sheltered so many others and kept them alive. And that person is Paul Rusesabagina. I would like, studio, if you have a picture of him, maybe for the audience to see. There he is with his daughters, Karine, and this is the man who provided shelter for over 1,200 people. The story that we're telling of repression and the government of Rwanda going after those who do not tell the story the way they want to tell it, the way the narrative, the people who talk about the atrocities in the Congo, the people who talk about the repression inside the country, the people who talk about the assassinations outside of the country and the threats that we face. Those people are subject to what happened to Paul Rusesabagina, who was kidnapped from Dubai 6 months ago and taken to Rwanda. And today he's accused of terrorism. And you've heard this before, right? Nelson Mandela was accused of terrorism. They accuse us of terrorism because we're not going to change our stories. And guess what? Our truth, our stories terrorize the perpetrators. And so the truth is terrorizing to the perpetrators, but unfortunately, we're not going to stop. We ain't stopping. And I want to give the last word, to wrap this up. First, to start with our host, our HMG director, Freeman Bikorwa, and then I'll come back to you, Delphine and JP, for your comments to wrap it up. Freeman Bikorwa, if you can hear me.
Yes, guys. My apologies. Thank you, Claude. I really want to say thank you to JP, to Claude, and Delphine. We really appreciate the story that you have shared with us. And I also want to apologize to the audience for the hacking that we have experienced. We've been getting all these hacks quite often, actually. Nowadays, it's been a little bit more than usual. So the hacks are normal. We do the best with our team to try to curtail as many as possible. But in this instance, as you have seen, we were unable to stop it, even though our technicians were able to bring back the broadcast, shortly afterwards. I really want to give thanks to Claude, Delphine, and JP for having really given this conversation. It would be a remiss, Claude, if you can allow me, if I can do a plug-in for Mama Idamange, and I would love for you to also maybe say something about Mama Idamange right before you guys finish up the story. For those of you guys who do not know Mama Idamange, she's another one of the bravest women that I know of in Rwanda, who is currently under arrest by the Rwandan government. She was one of the courageous women who, for the past 2 weeks now, she had taken the entire country as a storm, where she put out a few videos in Kenya, Rwanda, as she speaking out from within the country against the oppression, against injustices in Rwanda, against hunger, against measures within the country. She's speaking up. She's been speaking out against repression within the country altogether. And consequently, the government of Rwanda have taken her into custody. She's currently under arrest, and not just under arrest. She's being mistreated. Of course, most of the mistreatment we cannot reveal, even though we know there's torture. There are so many things being done to this woman. So much injustices. The most recent thing, she's being put into handcuffs day in and day out, especially even when she goes to bed. She has handcuffs in her hands, handcuffs with her in her legs as well. So you can imagine you trying to go to bed with handcuffs, both hands and legs. This is the Rwandan government, the same government that you guys are giving all this money, so much help, just so they can actually advance the country, the reconciliation, and all these wonderful things that you guys are supporting. However, an average citizen is not being extended the same courtesy from the same government that you are supporting to. So I'd like to bring it to your attention, you, the international community, get to know this woman, Mama Idamange. And that's one of my last words that I put out to you. And Claude, if you can actually do another plug-in for Mama Idamange, because what she's doing, she's sacrificed her whole entire life. At home, whom currently mother, and everything that she's been doing, everything that she's doing because of the love of the country. She's in our age range. And what she's doing it because of the love of the country. So Claude, back to you. And again, our apologies at the station for the interruption that we have had. Some days we do get hacked, just like you have experienced. Other days we are able to curtail the attacks before you see them in front of your programs. And our apologies to all stations that were carrying the pictures that you've experienced an interruption during a live programming. And with that in mind, we are doing the very best to work as hard as we can work to curtail these groups of people who just do not want us to speak our story, to speak our truth the way we want to speak it. So back to you, Claude. Thank you so much again for such a wonderful conversation between you, Delphine, and JP. Our thanks to you, the entire studio.
Thank you, Freeman. Thank you, HMG Studio, for your generosity in carrying these conversations and sharing them with your affiliates around the world. Before I have a lot to say about Ms. Idamange, but maybe before I do that, I will because I know JP and Delphine also have a lot to say. We're gonna keep it short, but I'm gonna give you some time to speak about her, because I do think she's one of the most courageous people. And For us, what they do is they hack us. They stop us from talking. For people in the country, not only do they hack their homes by invading their homes, like they did Mama Idamange's, Ms. Idamange's home, brutally arrested her. They torture the people. That's how they silence people. They jail them. So we get hacked because we are telling an inconvenient truth, and who's doing all the hacking and all of the disturbing us. We're not stopping, and we are going to continue to support Ms. Idamange. But again, before I say a lot here, JP, I would like for you to not only speak about her, but also wrap up your comments, and then I'll close it off with my comments on Ms. Idamange.
Thank you, Claude. And I guess, like you said, it's tragic that if someone is inside the country, they cannot talk, they cannot tell their truth, and that the environment is not. There are rules, but they're just in the books, and it's a shame that they're not followed, and it's a shame how people are treated. And that's why Miss Ndamage spoke, because she had her truth and she wanted everyone to hear it. Yeah, and I guess relating it to what we're doing now is that you cannot silence the truth, not forever. You cannot, and hopefully they will treat her, they'll stop mistreating her, or they will. I'm hoping that she would have a fair try, which is, anyway, I'm just hopeful. And it's encouraging, I guess, to see people that are talking, because for us, like you said, Claude, it's hoping that some people, they followed even outside the country, but for us, at least, it's not as bad as, you speak and the next minute they're knocking on, they're pretty much smashing your door. But I hope that we all see that her strength and her, hopefully we are inspired by her courage and do the same to speak the truth. The truth will win sooner or later, and they can try to silence it, but it will win. And I mean, seeing us the way we've grown, we are not children, because you can scare a child, you can easily silence them, but we grown now, and they're not gonna silence it anymore. And wrapping up our conversation today, I really wanted to thank you, JP and Claude, for sharing your stories. JP, your story has touched me a lot, and unfortunately, there's so many people, so many Rwandans who have similar stories, and it's sad that we cannot even talk about it openly. But I thank you for sharing your story, and sorry about your parents, sorry about everyone you've lost along that journey, and sorry about what you had to go through. But the good thing is that you survived, and you're here now to tell us the story, the survival story, and the resilience. So to wrap up, I would thank you everyone who's been following us, and everyone who will watch this later. I would encourage everyone to tell your story. Anyone who was born in Rwanda, or anyone who has some story to tell us, to tell your story. Every story is different. It doesn't matter if you survived in 1990 or 1994 or 96 or 98, or even now you're still surviving. We need to tell our stories, because when we do not talk, you think that you've had it worse, and I think I've had it worse, but actually, if we spoke, we would sort of get to understand each other, and to really respect and acknowledge everyone's journey, because we've all had some journeys, and we all have stories to tell. And also, I would like to, like you was talking about, JP, some, I don't know, people who sort of try to tell you not to talk or whatever. I mean, if they're comfortable, if they're still scared or fearful of talking about their journeys, they just have to leave people who are courageous enough to talk, and leave them alone. They need to leave us alone, because this is a journey, this is our lives, this is our history that we've been through. So would I be silenced if if I'm ready to talk about it? So will not be silenced. The truth must be known. And I encourage everyone to really find that courage inside yourselves to talk about your stories, to tell your stories, and to move on, to really move on, and celebrate that we are still alive. Because so many people didn't make it. Yes. So I again thank you, Claude and JP, for this conversation, and thank you, HMG, for giving us this opportunity to talk. And yeah, thank you. See you again, because this is the beginning of, it's an ongoing journey of us telling our stories. Yeah, thank you.
JP.
So I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to start by thanking Freeman. Freeman, thank you so much, mate. You've been a blessing to many for actually giving people platforms, and also you and your technicians trying to fight the battles that most of us don't see. Thank you so much, and for your team. And as Damange's story is concerned, I think the last time you were speaking to her, I just called her because I was following what basically when she was telling her story, and then basically I kept being worried and praying for her, and then that didn't end there. I ended up calling her, and I spoken to her for about 10 minutes. And when I spoken to her, I encouraged her, and I kind of like told her to keep cool and resist any negativity that comes to her, because she was telling her story. And then as soon as I finished to basically talk to her, that's when you actually were speaking to her, because at the same time I am speaking to her, and then I followed you because I was following basically two systems. I had a system, and I was at work as well, but I could follow her and follow time, and then I can only imagine, Freeman, what kind of trauma you went through, hearing all those the way they attacked her, and they kind of forced entry into her home, and that left the trauma in you as well. And I feel sorry for you, Freeman, and I hope you kind of you also prayed about that, because it's not an easy thing to kind of to live 94 trauma and live other events that you went through, and also when you thought that it was peace, to actually live a trauma where you're speaking to someone and just people come and snatch the person you were speaking to. And I do kind of I could only imagine what you went through, what kind of a trauma you went through, because for me, I spoken to her before you spoken to her for about 10 minutes. And then as soon as I left, I hung up the phone after saying to her that, be courage and stuff like that. And then you took over, and I was following you. And also you had so many audience, who were watching live and listening in, who were tuned in. And I was one of the guys that was tuned in, but I could not speak to you guys or come in because I was at work. But I just took a break, about 10 minutes break, to call her and give her some encouragement, all the encouragements. I can only imagine the trauma you've been through and how long that lasts, or even if it's gonna finish at some point in time soon as well. So yeah, that's what I can say about Daman. She's a courageous woman, and she has opened up too many people's eyes. The same way when Kizito was taken away from us. Actually, people say, you know what, you can take one Kizito, but we produce 1,000, 10,000 Kizitos, and you're not going to silence everybody. So for me, that event reminded me 94, where people just wake up and think that they can actually close people's mouth and stuff like that. And I was really bit and upset then, because seeing someone being the truth. Who gave them a warranty to kind of arrest someone who just finished to talk for about an hour? And also I want to remind the audience that Freeman, as you said on the channel, on the day of the arrest of Damange, the chief police has lied
about what was happening to Damange when they said, oh, she has actually committed the suicide and stuff like that. That was a lie, and that's what they do. So for me, I'm not going to talk a lot, and I know you guys have been following us, and probably most of you guys will probably tired because it's taken a long time. But we are here, and if you want to tell your stories openly, just find someone that you trust between us. Myself, Claude, or Delphine, or even a free man, and share your stories, because that's a part of healing. And it doesn't matter what kind of a tribe you come from, what country you come from. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can share your stories, and we are here to listen. We are here to kind of give you guys a shoulder to cry on if you need to cry. And we are here. We just loving people. We just sharing because we love you guys, and we have find the light, and we're gonna continue to deal with the darkness of people who want to silence others. Thank you very much, guys, and thank you. Back to the studio, and thank you, Claude. I think you can hear me. Thank you.
Thank you guys for sharing, and I also want to share about Miss Idamange, and if you could please repeat the name after me. Idamange. Idamange. This woman is a historical woman for Rwandans. With the significance, if I can make a comparison, to me, she reminds me of historical women like Princess Nzinga this is a very historical. It's a woman who was a liberator. She would not back down to domination. There's also other courageous women like Harriet Tubman, the woman who freed so many slaves. And what she said was, this applies to Rwandans, by the way. She said, I could have saved thousands more slaves than I did had they known that they are slaves. A lot of Rwandans pretend they are not oppressed, and they hide their heads in the sand. They're like an ostrich, and kind of think that when you hide it, that's gonna take away your reality. And it kind of reminds me of some of the stories that we're talking about. There was a time when we were getting bombed, and we went into hiding, and we all dove into the bushes, and the shooting went on and on and on and on and on. And then at some point, thank you, studio, for putting Princess Nziga on the screen. But anyway, so this shooting was going on, and then all of a sudden, after the shooting died down, I looked up, I took my head out the bush, and the whole of my body was exposed, was out there. So if somebody was coming to shoot, they would have gotten me. And that is like hiding our heads in the sand is not going to work. And I do think that this is a historical woman, Ms. Damange, just like Princess Nzinga on the screen. There's also Harriet Tubman, who also is, I just talked about, freed many, many, many slaves. Could have known that they were slaves, that they were hiding their heads. We also have people like Rosa Parks, in Bertuk and Medexa in Ethiopia. There's Harriet Tubman, historical women. The way, that is how I see Idamange. She took a stand. And if you don't take a stand, then nothing in life. You got to take a stand. And she did. The lion's den. And she was loud. She was direct. She was straight. She said, don't take black and call it black. And please, there's Bertuk and Medexa on the screen. And please, don't take white and turn it into gray just to make yourself comfortable, or take black and turn it into gray just to make yourself comfortable. She is that type of personality to be what it is, and she challenged the in Rwanda, and for that, she's paying a heavy price. Not only is she jailed and being tortured and being held in handcuffs, sleeping in handcuffs, but also prior to her child was snatched and taken for 14 hours and was returned. But basically, but what she said was, it doesn't matter what you do to just say this because I love my people. I know Freeman said, it's for the love of the country. For me, it's for the love of the country. To me, it's just a territory. But people are so much more important. And she did say, I love my people, all my Rwandans, including the stigmatized ones that we talked about here. So Miss Idamange is a historical person that is absolutely the type of people that's needed in Rwanda. She has a type of courage that Rwandans need and people around the world. And I just think that we should all not only get to know her, but continue to support the efforts to support her legal case, which we know she's not going to get a fair trial. We're going to expose at least how that trial goes. That we continue to make noise so that she can be freed eventually, and continue to encourage her. And so for me, I'm just grateful. Like it's been said before, I've seen so many things that make me repeat the phrase, "What a time to be alive." And Idamange also made me say, "What a time to be alive." And with that, I would like to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. Apologies for the hack attack that we experienced earlier. And this conversation will continue. We're going to continue to have these not only on Rwanda, but also the Congo, because we're pursuing justice for these things that happened. And the rest of mostly the African continent, but we may touch other regions. So stay tuned. Stick with us, continue to follow the work that we're doing. And again, gratitude to HMG Studio. Thank you, Delphine. Thank you, JP, for sharing your stories. And thank you, everybody in the audience that interacted with us. And for those who are in the morning, good morning. And those who have evening or afternoon or night, good night. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one. Back to studio.
Your spirit may fly away, be broken, may not speak, for some things cannot be spoken. Pay for the greed of men who did not respect the woman, the Congolese woman, oh the woman. They hurt your body and your mind, and they take